time, well, then we got a conversation we got to have. But if something bad happened, we'll deal with it. It gets back into we're daring people to do interesting things. So you're not going to kill somebody for messing up. You're going to say, hey, man, good try. Good try for doing something cool. So I think the biggest mistake that I see, creative people in particular, because what happens is it turns out you're a really good designer or you're a really good art director or you're a really good writer, and they go, hey, let's put him in charge. Let's put her in charge. Like, she's good at writing. And you go, that's not a qualification for leading people, right? And so it's sort of it's something you got to learn by doing if you're not naturally suited to that. So all of that said, I have very much tried to trust the people around me and give them clear orders and hold them accountable for doing it, and not killing them when they make mistakes. And I think it's as simple as that. I kind of always think people tend to not realize they can reach a lot higher than they're reaching. And if you just ask them to reach high, they'll do it. And they can do it. And they'll end up surprising themselves. And then you go, all right, well, let's raise it a little higher. Try something else.
Well, people have been slapped so frequently for making the effort they were asked to make that they do get scared and pull back.
Well, in particular, I think creative people tend to, we're a mess most of the time. So, and I'm saying it's just, we're a mess, and we're not, we're supposed to be a little nuts. And, you're surrounding yourself with creative people, and creative people are, by definition, just a little crazy. And so you can either try to stamp that down and say, like, no more crazy, or you can go, hey, you're supposed to be that way. Now what? Now let's figure this out. And
let's use it.
Yeah, and so we try to just go, hey, you know what? Treat people nice, and you can be weird. I don't care. You can be a weirdo as long as you're good, I don't really care. But I've worked at a lot of companies where, they don't trust it. They don't trust that, and they feel like they want to stamp. They got to stamp. They need to be different. And you go, no, they're creative people. Like, why do they need to be different? They're creative. This is why we're paying them to do interesting, different things. That's why we hired them. Why are you trying to stamp that out? Like, why would you try to step on them and not let them do that? So that's sort of philosophically, I think, where I am right now.
What are some of the obstacles that you are still facing on a day-to-day basis now?
Yeah.
That things are coming into some fruition?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly. We are starting to pitch business, and we don't have a pitch machine here. And I've worked at agencies before where we had a machine. It was a machine, and we knew exactly what to do, and we knew exactly how to do it. And the industry has changed, and we're not doing things the way we used to do them in a lot of ways. And so I'm trying not to recreate the machine that we had before. And again, 4 or 5 years we had no machine, zero machine. Like, we have not, all the lessons that I learned pitching from the previous 17 years before that as a creative director, we kind of threw out and said, we're not going to do that. And so we were approaching business in a completely different way, which we still do. But we're now saying, like, okay, we're pitching. So we're going to pitch business. We're going to pitch the things we want. It's still around our mission. And our mission is to do great work and make a difference for clients we believe in. That's what we're trying to do. So once we decide we want something, we need to pitch it. And so, what's keeping me up at night? Figuring out that process and how to do it without losing our soul and what we're about. So.
And in terms of keeping your creative edge, how do you keep yours honed around that process, personally?
I don't even think about it. I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't ever try to look at my personal process. I don't ever try to look at what I feel like if you look at it, it might go away. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just don't look at. I don't think about that. I don't ever think about. I need to go get inspired. I don't think that way. I just always try to kind of be interested in something new. I'm a very curious person at all times. I always realize I don't have the answer, and so I think that alone for me is about enough. I just realize I don't know what I'm talking about 90% of the time, so including right now.
But if you acknowledge it, then it's a good thing. So, well, in terms of creative process and diversity, I think of creativity, since your agency title is lead guitar, how much of the playing of music inspires or in some way informs how,
Yeah.
does that have an impact
Absolutely.
on the visual part of what you do and the thinking that you do in terms of creativity?
Yeah.
Where does that fit in?
I would say it this way. I chose that title very specifically. So the idea originally was, let's create a company where you can be whatever you want. Whatever you want to be, whatever you want to bring, you can do it here. So if your ambitions are to be a great copywriter, just be a copywriter. Great, awesome, fantastic. But maybe you want to be something else here. Maybe you want to do that and something else. And so we always said, well, be whatever you want. And concurrent to that, there's this sort of title sickness in advertising where everybody wanted, I have to be a senior, SVP, associate creative director, junior partner, and it's like, really, do you want to be a creative director? Because you know what creative directors do? They sit in meetings and they have to deal with problems and they have to deal with people, and that's what you want? Or do you want to be a writer and an art director? So I always have these conversations with people, which, my entire sort of adult career, I've tried to have those conversations with people that say they want to be, I have to be an ACD, and you go, why? So you can leave and get more money? That's what I'm hearing, I'd rather have a conversation about what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want to bring?
Right.
And so lead guitar for me was, I've always, again, this goes back to that document I always said, we're not going to be a family, we're going to be a band. Companies love to go, we're a family. It's like, no, you're not a family. You're paying people. And in a family, you don't get to go, son, you're fired. That doesn't happen. But in a band, everybody has to do their part, play their instrument, carry the equipment, harmonize, and you know exactly if you can hear yourself too much, you're actually not doing a good job, right? It's a wonderful metaphor for what a company can be and what a creative company can be. And as lead guitar, I'm not always in the front. And I do help carry equipment, and sometimes I do step forward. So that is literally where the metaphor came from. And I've been in bands my entire life. And there's a camaraderie and a language that comes in being in a band that is hard to describe if you've never been in one.
Yeah.
And that's what we've tried to create here. Is it really is a band? And I've said this. Everybody here that works here will have heard me say that a million times. So that we're a band, we're not a family.
That's a great image. Well, speaking of culture, and you've already talked about some of the cities and agencies that you've worked in on both coasts. And most recently with McKinney and Durham for 9 years before launching this agency. Each of those agencies had its own culture. What are some of the, the better aspects of those cultures, as well as some of the ones that you wanted to leave at the door that you brought from those years of experience into here?
Well, I'm going to answer that a little differently because I don't think of it in terms of the culture of a company are bad or good in that way. Culture is people. That's what the culture of a company is.
Yeah.
You can have any company in the world and put 5 different people in it and change the entire culture overnight.
True.
And so I think it's about who you surround yourself with and who works in the company, and is there an authentic mission for what you're trying to do. And so those are the things that I've tried to bring forward into this company, and I've worked at companies where the mission was complete bullshit and a lie, and I've worked at companies where the mission was living and breathing in the kind of halls, and that can certainly attract culture. But you are who you're surrounded by, and it all comes from the top. It comes from the top down. But that's why if you get a cancerous person in your culture, they have to go. They'll be rejected, and I think in a good culture they get rejected like a baboon heart. They're gone. It literally is who's in the building. So to me, that culture is a living, breathing organism. It's not a thing. And I always hear people go like, "We need to build culture here. Let's have a pancake breakfast." And you go, "That's not going to do anything."
Right.
Because you're not changing the people.
Agreed.
Forced fun is not culture.
Well, I've heard for so many years it's been going around that you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And that it influences your income and your eating and weight and all of those, and yet people continue to fight against as if they can change them rather than being changed by them or affected by them.
Absolutely.
Jumping over a little bit back to the leadership kind of questions again. During the time you served as chairman of the board of the One Club, that position brings a lot of attention, probably favorable attention and prestige, but it's a lot of responsibility, and I'm going to imagine a fair amount of time that gets kind of sucked or drawn away. Can you talk a little bit about that balance of what you are giving to the profession versus what you're receiving?
Sure.
Kind of put it in the context, I think, of people who are trying to think, why should I serve? I'm on the board of directors for ASMP, and I just look around and think about the people who pull away from leadership roles, and I think, well, you learn a lot, you grow.
Yeah.
You're giving and receiving. Can you talk a little bit about what you have learned through the years in that capacity? Because that was a pretty high position of visibility.
Yeah. Well, the One Club was one of the things that inspired me as a young creative person. It still does. I'm still blown away by the One Show. I am a One Show fan. That is the show for me. Can is awesome, and there's D&AD is fantastic, and they're great shows. But the One Show still, to me, is the one that makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and the thought of winning it still to this day makes me feel like a kid. And to be able to have been in any capacity at the One Club, if you had told me when I was 23, I would have laughed in your face. Like, there's no way. To be the chairman of the board there, it sort of is indescribable how amazing that was. That said, there is a group of people that run that club that make it what it is, that made it what it is, and continue to make it what it is to this day. And the culture of that club is just resoundingly kind of focused on what the mission is, and the kind of raising the profile of creativity in business, which is what that club's all about. And Mary Warlick, who I'm so proud to have been associated with her and have been part of that. Mary Warlick for 25 years, ran that club. Kevin Swanepoel today is continuing to run it. Just an amazing guy. And you're also kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, and some of the other chairmen before me and after me. It's a very humbling experience to sort of be in that. So, walking into that, talk about culture, you walk into that and go, holy shit, I got a responsibility here. This is not something you can phone in. And so I took it very, very seriously. And I love that the club gives back to education. It's a nonprofit.
Right.
It's amazing. I mean, the club to this day just inspires in what it does, as opposed to Can, which is for-profit and is amazing. And so the creativity there is amazing, and you can't argue with what they've done. But the One Club's nonprofit and is, lives on the kind of benevolence of the industry and tries to give back and does a lot of things that are just astounding. So I think that, for me, when I got into the club, I feel like you can, as any leader, you can only do a few things at a time and really make it happen. So I walked into a highly functioning company, at the One Club, and I had some things I wanted to do, and one of them was, I said, we need to make the One Club more part of pop culture, and so that's where art and copy came from. It wasn't my idea to do art and copy. It was an organism idea to do art and copy, but that's why we did that. It was living into the mission of raising the level of creativity and the esteem of creativity and the effectiveness of creativity in business. That said, I have a constant struggle with my time. I have always said I will never turn a student away, and I really try not to do that to this day. But it's so hard. It's so hard. And I tell kids all the time, I'm like, if I tell them this, I say, I will get back to you. It may be a while, but I will get back to you. And I do my best. Even me just saying this now, I'm going to get 1,000. I get so many emails every week asking for my time, and I can't do them all, so I have to be selective. But I really, really try very hard to get back to people and to get back to people that need something or need me. It gets a little overwhelming sometimes, but I've really tried to do it. I've made that a focus of my entire career, that I would always try to help people that are kind of coming up.
Well, that's an admirable thing. It's something I've tried to do as well, and you're right, it can take a lot of time. But something I've found increasingly, as I've asked people even for this show and talking with folks, is that the best of the best always seem to give their